You read the title correctly. Practicing to a metronome won't inherently magically fix your time issues. The truth is, a lot of drummers actually sound worse when playing to a click. Today we're going to talk about why this is the case and how we can actually fix our time issues. Hey everybody, welcome to the Non-Glamorous Drummer. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Playing to a metronome is like putting up the gutter guards on a bowling lane. Sure, they're gonna help you keep your ball on the lane and it's gonna hit a pin when it gets down there, but they're not actually gonna help you bowl straighter once you put them back down. You have to physically practice rolling the ball straight. It's kind of the same way with playing to a click, because playing to a click might force you into good time. It might steer you and keep you focused on playing with good time. But just because you're doing that doesn't mean that when you take the click out from under you, you're still going to be moving straight ahead on good time. You could easily be weaving and not realize it. Practicing to a click isn't going to inherently fix your time issues. You have to intentionally practice good time, and that's really what we're talking about today. So how do we do this? How do we improve our time? How do we fix our time if practicing to a metronome isn't going to do us any good? Well, it all has to do with how we practice to a metronome and how we approach it. So I'll tell you a story that'll hopefully help illustrate it. A few years ago, I was playing a bunch with a band at a small venue. We were playing covers, a lot of rock, blues, acoustic rock covers, and we were set up on a very small stage in the corner of the room, and so we were all able to hear each other really well. And it was actually a good environment for just recording the gig on my Tascam, my trusty old Tascam. I set it on the floor right here and just set it to record because I had noticed that in certain songs there were moments where it felt like things were rushing a little bit, dragging a little bit, but we as a band were listening well and we were staying together. So it wasn't a big deal, but I knew that just for my own sake, I wanted to be a little more consistent time-wise, and I needed to pinpoint where those spots were that I was rushing or dragging. So I recorded the gig. The next day, I pulled up the recordings here on my computer, started listening to them, and sure enough, I noticed that, going into that chorus, I'm dragging a little bit, going into that turn, I'm rushing. So I tried to line a click up to it just to double check, and sure enough, the click confirmed it. I get the metronome going on my phone along with the recording. Like, okay, I'm doing pretty good here. Rushing a bunch here, dragging a bunch here. And so I started making notes of those specific spots where I knew the troubles were. Then as a second step, once I'd done that, I sat down at the kit and started playing through those specific parts of the song, just with the song playing in my head, playing to the metronome. I had the click roughly at the tempo of the song, and I would just play through it. And it was weird because going into, I think the specific song I remember was What Would You Say by Dave Matthews Band. Going into the choruses on that song, it's easy to drag. I'm not sure exactly why, it's just the nature of the feel there. It's a mental thing. It's easy to drag those choruses, and that was what was happening. So as I was practicing it to a metronome, going into that, I was realizing, whoa, I gotta really push. The click was just yanking me along, and I was having to make sure I kept up. I knew that, okay, next time I play this, I've got to make sure I'm pushing here on the choruses in order to stay right with it. So then in my practicing, I also turned the click off, practice playing through it without a click, being intentional about pushing it going into the choruses and, laying back wherever else I needed to in other songs. And that is how you improve your time, because you find your tendencies. You have to figure out what are your timing tendencies in specific instances or with specific feels or types of changes in what you're playing. Figure out those tendencies so then you can overcome them. Until you do that, you're just going to be wishy-washy all the time. The purpose of practicing to a metronome is to illuminate time flaws in your playing. Only once you know these tendencies can you actually begin to fix them. If there's a problem, you can't fix the problem if you don't know the problem exists. And so you have to be very intentional about your practicing. And so that's why I say that practicing with a metronome won't just naturally improve your time. I guess it could in maybe a subtle way, and if you've only ever practiced to a metronome all your life, that's going to develop a little bit of a natural sense of time. But let's say you've majority of your life not played with a metronome and you're suddenly practicing to a metronome, you're probably not going to feel too good about your playing, and you're going to feel like a car weaving back and forth on the road or a plane zigzagging down the runway where the click is right here and you're constantly weaving, and if you take the click out, you have no idea which way you're going to veer. And so that's an example of where just practicing to the metronome isn't going to make your time better. Instead, you've got to figure out, what are my tendencies? Where do I speed up? Where do I slow down? What kind of fill causes me to rush? What kind of transition or what type of groove causes me to drag? Once you know those things and you know what your tendencies are, you can overcome them. So kind of to sum all this up, wrap it all up, a challenge, an action step for the week is do what I did in that story. And if you can record yourself on a gig, that's great, because there you can see what your flaws are in the heat of the moment in the real world situation. But at least record yourself playing, figure out what your tendencies are, and figure out how to fix them. Practice with the click and know exactly when you need to push a little bit, when you need to lay back. Now, I know that's not the most fun thing to do, but it is the most rewarding, and that is the fastest way to improve your time, because there you're immediately diagnosing and prescribing. Those are instant changes. You can fix bad timing in a specific song almost instantly that way. So that's a really good quick fix for timing issues. Of course, play along with recordings that are recorded to a click, play along to your favorite songs, especially if they're recorded to a click, because that is gonna help your time overall. It's gonna help your sense of time, just having that feel always in your head, because it's definitely a feel thing, and you want to naturally have a good sense of time. Now, you can also do that exercise where you gradually strip the metronome out from under yourself as you're playing, where maybe you've got it doing quarter notes at 90 beats a minute, and then you set it to half notes, and then whole notes, and then you have it click only on every other downbeat or every 4 downbeats. And so you can do that, and that's definitely gonna help too, but I would consider that to be the advanced step. Go to that last, and once you've figured out your tendencies, then practice playing through a song where you've got the song playing in your head, and you've got the click only playing downbeats or every other downbeat, because then that teaches you to listen more to yourself. The less click there is hammering in your head, the more you're able to focus on what you're actually doing. And really, that's a big problem with playing to a click, and why a lot of guys don't sound so good when they're playing to the click, because they're so focused on hearing the click that it's the bowling ball bouncing back and forth down the lane, hitting each guardrail. It's the car weaving back and forth across the road. That's uncomfortable. That doesn't work. You've got to listen to yourself first, and then that's going to sync up to the click. And so the less click sound there is, in other words, the less subdivisions, the more that click practice is actually going to help your time. So I know I've thrown a lot at you today, and this has just been a video of me sitting here talking and not really playing anything, because it doesn't really make sense for me to try to show you a bunch of examples, because you just have to go do it. You have to do this yourself, and it's very specific from drummer to drummer. But I hope this has encouraged you that you absolutely can improve your time, and there are quick ways to do it. And yeah, certain things do take time, but there are very specific solutions to specific instances that you'll find very rewarding if you go do this. Hey, I really hope this video helped you out. I think this is a really important topic that isn't really talked about a whole lot, and yet it's a big deal. And so I really hope this helped guide your practicing and your strategy so that you're able to better improve your time in much less time, ironically. So I hope you're able to improve your time quickly thanks to this information. If this did help you out, I hope you'll subscribe, and I hope you'll share the video. Thanks guys, and I'll see you next time.